refine labs. This is State of Demand Gen.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the State of Demand Gen podcast. This is your host, Chris Walker. This consulting session pillar has become a fan favorite, getting tons of great feedback about these real life calls, going through real life questions with software companies about what to do across all of their brand and demand programs. And so we're about to get into this one. We covered a lot that has to do with an organic, modern content strategy that involves a live event. And so we use the live event on a weekly basis as a method to create the content and basically force consistency, and then how that flows all the way through into distribution, measurement and attribution, and some of the new topics that I'm thinking. And so there are a lot of what I would call FAQs for software marketers in here. I hope you enjoy it, and we're going to get into it right now.
Chris, as you know, I'm an avid consumer of your content and religious disciple, and we, have taken an equity position in Click2, reverse engineering a lot of the stuff that you do on the outside, right? So the live internet talk show format that drives content creation engine by repurposing and redistributing across tactical distribution channels, and also very customer centric. How do we solve problems for the customer on the content channel? And that's what we do, right? So we're reverse engineering that piece to drive community, drive that dark funnel interaction and all those intangible things that we've already kind of like been doing and you have put amazing language to. And Dotan, to his credit, as a visionary CEO, has completely bought into the strategy, right? So got him on this call. They're pretty early stage, already have some market fit and are pivoting into another market. Dotan can tell you more about that stuff. But basically, I assume that it would be good content for you to just take like the stuff that you're showing people that are executing and then reverse engineering on how you would add that secret sauce. And I'll kind of shut up from there and let Dotan take over.
Awesome.
All right. I'll just, I'd love to tell you more a little bit about what Click2 is. First of all, I'm Dotan. I'm joining you're all in the States. I'm actually in Tel Aviv in Israel. So it's 4:34 in the afternoon. Isar is here as well. Usually he's in the States, but he's now here. And Click2, as Pablo introduced us, we are pretty early stage. We are like a 1-year-old company in the online education sphere, a galaxy, I would say. Our product is built to serve the fourth wave of online education, where all the three waves are mostly around massive courses, pre-recorded, self-paced, independent learning that get to about 3% completion. And we are building the platform for the fourth wave of cohort-based live video online courses. Our initial target market are actually providers that create courses for kids, enrichment programs, after-school programs for kids, but also later on for any part of this industry for adults, senior citizens. Basically, we call it lifelong learners. Our platform is, it allows both people of the creators economy, those who have some sort of expertise to jump in, but also legacy schools or enrichment providers that just need that door to open up their content and teachers and brand online and serve, the millions of people that are out there that were never part of their industry or their audience. So this is what Click2 is. It's a SaaS platform, and it allows building the courses, selling the courses, monitoring them, monetizing them, and growing from teacher to business to campus. It's all about growth wherever you start.
Is it product led? Is that the main go-to-market motion?
Can you allow
meaning can someone go in there, self-serve, get into the platform and start going, or is this an enterprise sales motion?
So it's a good question. We hope, because we're still small and early stage, so we're still building it and we're figuring it out as we go. So today we prefer scheduling a demo with a a customer and creating their account for them and helping them with our customer success team to kind of build their program. But we do see that evolving into a self-serve, automated process.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned a couple of different markets. Where are you getting the most traction right now in terms of an ideal customer?
So we are really at the beginning. We are hoping to work with organizations in the K-12 enrichment space, after school programs, and any provider, that does chess,
traditional education,
arts, not traditional education, everything that is out of school, actually. This is our initial audience that Josh brings with him, with his network and list, and Becca and myself. So this is, our initial audience, and we also really understand them because our background stories are all coming from those angles.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Chris, their market hit when the pandemic hit. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dotan and Josh, right? But when the pandemic hit, they were able to quickly pivot a bunch of summer camps into the software. So that's the first wave of success cases. Mm-hmm. And then now it's these 24, these year-round enrichment programs around schools that they're going after. That's their vertical.
Got it. Cool. So what specifically should we tackle today? Appreciate the background.
We are entering this amazing journey with Pablo, Isar, Gina, and starting to form this live weekly show where we're bringing guests from the industry and experts, and every week it's a different topic. And what Isar and Pablo and Gina are going to produce for us is, from each of those episodes, they're going to produce for us a whole bucket of content pieces to be distributed in all social medias and everywhere, and podcasts and everything. And we have a few, we understand that this is great, but I think what we would love to learn from you first, as somebody who create your own content and a lot of content, is how should we measure, or which metrics or parameters should we look at to know that we have the right content, that which content really works for us? You create a lot of different types of content, and how did you find out which content works, which content doesn't work, to bring the right audience, to create the right community around your services?
This is a interesting and complex question, so I'll just start breaking it down here. So the first thing that I do is try and have the audience or my target participate in the content creation. So I'm always listening, I'm communicating. I can see whether heads are nodding or whether people are tuning out. I can see what questions get asked. And so when it comes to the actual event, the best way to score it, in my view, is repeat attendance. How many people come back a second time to go and see? It's I don't think a lot of companies even think about that metric. And it's like, we're putting on the event so people come and enjoy it. How do we create an event that's so good that people will take time out of their day on a recurring basis to show up? Because it's not about the content that's recorded afterwards. It's about what happens at the event that is valuable enough to do it. And so in our event, the reason that people show up is, one, the content's good. Two, they can ask 5 questions and basically get free consulting from me. But additionally, there's a group, a pretty large group of people that come every week that have known each other, that have gotten other jobs, that do networking. So we provide all of those things at the same time, which creates more and more value. And then over time, it's our job to listen to the audience and say, what else can we add into this event so that people find it more and more valuable over time? And so repeat attendance, I think, is a really good one. The second piece is, when you make it into micro content to distribute, is where you get a majority of feedback. And so when I'm writing posts, it's not about, I want to write this post so that I can, so it can hit and I can get a bunch of leads. It's, for me, a lot about testing messaging. And so for something there's core principles that I know that message resonates with the market because I've been talking about them for a long time. But when I have a new concept, I'm going in there to know whether or not it works, not whether or not the message resonates, not whether or not it drives results initially. And so I'll go and the copy that I write along with the video and then collect feedback in the comments to give me a ton of insights about, like people didn't understand what I meant there, or I need to say this a different way, or maybe people just don't agree with the opinion that I have here. And there's some opinions that I have that are sort of like out of left field that I test with not fully formed ideas for that reason, to get feedback of, hey, should I just cut this or should I keep moving and seeing if I should learn more about it? And so I'm sure that there's a follow-up on that one, but those are a couple of the ways that I think about it.
Chris, quick follow-up on that. Do you phrase it as a question, or do you just state it and see if people resonate with it and respond to it?
Most often I'm phrasing it as statements.
Question, Chris. So we've done this play before, and we find the qualitative data on like people coming back. It's sweet. And, like people commenting on LinkedIn posts. How are you? Do you guys, you have an automation that puts that into a spreadsheet and then you look at it qualitatively? Are you manually kind of just like going through the Zoom attendee list and putting it into a spreadsheet that you put together to see who's coming back every week? I would love to hear about that infrastructure.
I mean, we don't measure this at the level that you're asking. Like I just show up there and I see all of the same people and I know their names and I know, so like we don't calculate that quantitatively, but that's the qualitative sense that we get on the events.
Chris, I was wondering as you began to answer that complex question that Dotan is really good at asking those questions, whether this was chicken or the egg. So we're going back to like a very, very complex question. And I think you answered that it's chicken and the egg. And I think with what we're trying to do, what we're struggling with, what I'm a little frustrated with, I've been very clear with Dotan and Becca about, is Jotan just used something of the fourth wave that I'm writing that down, like we got to use fourth wave. That's good. Okay. So we're trying to, as Isar said, convince the unconvinced. They're struggling. They are online enrichment teachers. They're thinking about going back to in-person, but there's this world out there that frankly, a lot of Americans don't think about that want this US-based education when it comes to enrichment. So I guess my takeaway from what you said is, Dotan, Becca, is if we can start building this cohort of people who get it. So it's not just a show where we're talking at people, but they're kind of talking back to us. I don't know if it's possible, they're talking with us, but then we start building this group that gets it. And then you get that second layer of people are like, oh, I'm going to try that, and then it kind of goes out from there. So, I think, once we get our early adopters, we got to get them to be fans of the show and participate and help us. Is that what you're saying, Chris, in this instance? Totally.
And when I talk, like in terms of the people that come live, it's been ebbing and flowing, but there's like somewhere between 20 and 70 people that come every week. So these numbers are not astronomical, right? They're not that big. But it allows us that type of community that people will then tell other people, and it fuels the content over the internet, and you get a ton of the value from the content over the internet, right? So any individual person in the event, most of them would never even qualify to be our customer, and that's totally fine because the goal was to produce the content and then put it out on the internet to people that would be, because they ask the same types of questions.
But you got 20 people who are joining you each week, which is like insane.
On a recurring, so like it's probably to 100 total, but then if you look at the consistent like attendees, 20 to
say
70.
50, say 50. I have like 3 things I do each week, and 2 of them are on this call right now. And so great. And then if you've got 50 people who are out there, and half of those people then are sharing it, liking it, and talking about it, like they're out there doing your work. So that. I think that makes a lot of sense, trying to find those early adopters.
A key point is, like, if I reverse engineer back, we didn't have anything figured out at the beginning, right? Like even today, we're still revising our messaging based on the things that I say in a different way that communicate. So I think about this as like it's driving business results, and we're creating market research and we're building a community. But I also get to revise our messaging on almost a daily basis by doing it.
And sorry, one more question, guys, but talk about that. Like, so the first company the last company I started was about 10 years ago. And I guess I've forgotten that you have to just ebb and flow as you're getting going. And I'm like getting in this, messaging, like funk and with what we're doing. Cause I'm like trying this and then we're trying that. And I'm like, no, I know what it is. We need to know what it is. So talk about like being good with the ebb and flow.
So it's just a development of trying to figure it out for yourself and then figure out how to communicate it, right? And so if we look at like the progression between what I posted about attribution today versus how I was talking about attribution 12 or 18 months ago, it was very different because I needed the 50 or 100 questions and the 1,000 conversations I've had about it and all of the comments to continuously figure out how to better explain it to people. Right. And so before it was like, I forget, I don't even know what I was saying back then, but like attribution misses important touch points. And now it's like, oh, it makes sense because attribution is built to capture people that are in buy mode for direct response. And so it's going to give credit on that side. We need other things about other ways to measure the live show, the social comment, the podcast, the events, PR, whatever those things are. And so I figured out better about like these channels work well with what you have. You need other measurement mechanisms on these ones. And so it's just an ongoing process of like working and figuring that out. And don't shy away from it. It's real. I find it really helpful because other companies will sit in a boardroom and try and make shit up, as opposed to going out and talking to 100 of their customers every week and then really figuring it out that way. And I just think that it works a lot better.
And I think what you said is a great segue for the other question that Dotan had with regards to. Okay, I'll let Dotan ask the question.
So I have two big topics actually that I want to still have time to discuss. I'll give the title so we have enough time to discuss both. One is about shareable viral content. How do we, you use the distribution channels in the wise way, either the natural distribution, but also paid. And then the other topic is about turning content marketing into sales funnel. So the first one, we're going to distribute the micro content and everything we create in all the different channels that we have and platforms. But the real question is what's the magic of a content piece that makes it more shareable and people that will really feel, that they have to share it with their peers and colleagues. That's one. And then the other one is that if you have experience of doing paid retargeting of those micro content pieces to specific target, how do you choose that target audience at all?
Yeah. So the thing that gets content shareable is one of two things. One, people think that it's super funny or entertaining or something like that, so they share it, and that can work. It's not usually the route that B2B companies go. The way that I look at it, especially in B2B, is it's a way to communicate an idea or something that someone else didn't know how to explain and now knows, and they are struggling with that thing. AKA, it provides a point of view that's valuable to them and what they're trying to accomplish in their professional journey. And so I lean toward that side. We're trying to get more of a blend here at Refine Labs, but generally, like, you can win in B2B with pure information, as long as the information is good with a unique point of view that helps people. And so when I think about, like, I don't really think about it as moving it into a sales funnel. I think about it as if I communicate effectively the things that we believe, then the people that believe those things too and are struggling with the things that we solve will think about us when they want to solve them. And so that's sort of the way that I look at it. I'm just trying to get more and more people to know about the things that they believe right now that are no longer true, that if they stop believing those things. They could do a bunch of other better things in marketing. That's my goal. And if they do get to that place, they'll most likely consider Refine Labs, because there aren't many companies out there that we might be the only one that really knows how to do this in this way. And so that's my thoughts on shareability. In terms of the channels, you mentioned like putting it out across all of the channels. What you really need to do is you need to find the one or two that are going to be the workhorse, that are going to drive that outcome. So I think a lot of people get caught in the idea of like going into Hootsuite, pressing a button and having it go out to all of the things and getting almost no traction or engagement in any place. And so you got to, at the beginning, it's nice to test out a couple, but maybe you have a hypothesis that it's LinkedIn or potentially a Facebook group, or it might be different for your buyer, but finding the one channel that's going to really drive it at the beginning, I think is a good recommendation to move on. In terms of shareable, there's a lot of forms of shareability, right? So shareability could be like a literal share on LinkedIn, right? That's one. Another one could just be word of mouth. Hey, Susie, I was listening to the State of Demand Gen podcast, really enjoyed it. You should check it out. That's sharing. There's a big one called, I would call dark sharing right now, where somebody takes a link of my posts and puts it in a Slack channel or sends it in a direct message or places that you don't see. That happens a lot and gets no tracking. And then you have some form of like paid distribution. So all of those could move into the effect on when it moves into paid. You had mentioned retargeting. I would. There's two ways that you can approach it from this standpoint. You can either just create the content and just straight distribute it via paid, or if you have an organic channel that works, you can create the content, distribute it via organic, validate that it's one of your hard-hitting posts, and then run it as ads to people that are not following your page or you, or just match your ICP. And so when you get the organic going, you have a lot more flexibility on when to use paid. At the beginning, if you have no followers, I do recommend just using targeted paid and getting it to the people that you want. And then it's almost like a form of organic, right? So you can still collect engagement and relative performance against other pieces of content. I'll pause there.
Yeah, on that one, Chris. So I get what you're saying, right? And we have, I would say, the hypothesis for after school teachers, right, is probably Facebook is strong and Instagram is probably strong. There may be some LinkedIn there. So is the move, and we're going to be creating all this micro content that's going to exist in the ecosystem, and you'll be able to find the trails back to find us. So is the first move of creating this demand waterfall, sprinkling a little bit of paid across all those channels to see what of the micro content gets the most initial engagement. And then once we're getting more in one channel, then just going harder into that channel and build the group there, right? Like I think a Facebook group's a no-brainer, just to kind of like spin up and get going. But as far as dedication to the channel, is it like sprinkle a little across the top and then start just kind of like Plinko boarding down to exactly where you want it?
It's difficult because the engagement dynamics between paid channels are not the same. And so it might give you a false positive, or it might just point you in the direction of one channel is better for paid than organic, right? And so there's multiple layers in this. As you were mentioning, Facebook and Instagram, if you move into a Facebook group, I think that Facebook groups may not be where you just push out all of your content. It might need to be more like a place where people just hang out. So you might need to figure out how to facilitate that in a different way, and then add in little pieces of content later if you feel like it's appropriate. But a group may not be the main distribution for the content that you're creating.
Yeah, let me clarify that, right? So like what we've done in the past is create all the micro content with a call to action at the end of the micro content of come hang out with us in the Facebook group. And the Facebook group has a different engagement strategy, right?
Totally.
We're just talking about the little clips and the quote cards and stuff that we're going to make of paying that.
Totally. And then when you're looking at an organic channel, if people right now are mentioning like Instagram as a primary organic channel, you should almost certainly move to TikTok.
Makes sense.
It's just the chances of actually getting traction and growing an audience and those things are just so much higher in TikTok than they are in Instagram right now. And so for the same amount of effort, you might need to change up the content a little bit, right? The platform's different. you might have to do things differently, but figuring that one out and putting your effort there is what I would recommend. If you're going after, K-12 teachers, yes, there's probably more on Instagram, but they're also on TikTok, and more are going to be moving there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I wouldn't imagine that we will get to TikTok in this conversation. Like crazy.
We're doing so people, this may be more for people listening afterwards, but what we're doing on TikTok right now for some companies is we're running retargeting. And so just to see how many people in B2B, we're selling to finance leaders inside of certain companies, how many of those people that visited the website also use TikTok? That's what I want to know. And so we're doing some like audience data research right now, given that the targeting is not like it would be on LinkedIn. So we're starting to dip our toes in the water that way.
So TikTok has its own retargeting platform. So we need to integrate the TikTok pixel into the website. I didn't even know it exists.
I believe so. Honestly, we haven't started yet, but that's what I would assume is what's going on.
How are you thinking about as far as like repurposing your content for TikTok, right? Like, are you just kind of taking the same content, putting it in a tall format and adding a couple like little thought bubbles to it and fly just to get started?
We don't know.
Yeah.
We're continuing to build out our own team in order to figure some of these things out. It's becoming more of a priority right now, given just like the growth of that channel. But at the moment, I stay true to like sort of the things that I believe is like, if you only have enough resources to execute one or two channels well, then spreading it out across 5 may not be the right thing. And so at the moment, we can do probably 2 to 3 channels maximum well. And so we're on LinkedIn on both personal profiles and company page and podcast. Those are the 2 that we're really in. And then we're on the fringe of YouTube. And then the next one will be some form of TikTok, most likely organic.
Chris, thank you for the continued therapy. Do you accept United Healthcare for saying you don't know? Like I was like, this guy's saying he doesn't know. It seems like he knows everything, but he's also saying he doesn't know, which I think, Becca, is a good thing for us to be like, sometimes we're not going to know things on the show, and just be like, we don't know. We're going to figure it out. Again, this is kind of like, I feel like we're supposed to know everything, but we're also figuring out, even though the opportunity is right in front of us.
Yeah. I can go a couple minutes over if you want to talk. There was sales funnel on the agenda that we didn't really get to. So if you want to go a couple minutes, we can do that.
That would be awesome. Yeah. I think the question that Totan asked that is very interesting, right? When you take this approach of let's just provide value and try to create the content that the relevant audience would want to consume because it helps them progress whatever it is their goal is. How do you go from there? What do you find is the optimal way to go from there to what you always refer to as the demo page on the website, right? How do I take the people from there to go and sign up for the demo? Mm-hmm. Or is it totally organic? When they get it, they get it. I don't even try to push it and it will happen on its own.
Totally. Yeah. So we're in like a complete no push strategy, right? So there's nothing where it's like, come book a consultation or anything driving to those types of pages because we're not going to win them. Right. And software companies do the same thing and they do it and they are so obsessed with tracking things. And then they track that it came from that channel. And then they never look that none of them either close either. And so it just doesn't match how people buy these types of things with multiple stakeholders, complex buying decisions, technical integrations, maybe ripping out another piece of software. There's getting other departments or cross-functional on board, IT. People just don't make decisions about this stuff that way. And so it's more about creating like a very large net, so to speak, where you are communicating your narrative, your message, the things that are not working about the old way of doing things with tons of detail because you know your customer very well. And then the alternative of things that they could be doing differently is the top. And then all you need is a clear, differentiated product and a unique value proposition message on your website. So when somebody gets there, they know all about the things that you believe in already. They're like, they get to the website, they're like, oh, this is for me. And then they convert. And that's the way that I think about a website. And most people don't think about it that way. But I would rather do my education in places where people already are, because it's way more effective in lieu of all of the tracking. And then let them come to the website and convert. And then I'm just tracking the growth of those types of channels. We're getting even deeper into this. So organic traffic growth, direct traffic growth are things that we're looking at. We're looking at also demo page views that are non-paid traffic. And so like starting to build up before the conversion. And we're seeing positive trends in all of those metrics after implementing the strategy in a 3 or 6 month period of time. And so those are people that are sort of like self-selecting. You're creating the demand somewhere else. And then your capture demand strategy is robust enough to get those channels to continue to grow.
It's interesting when you talk about it. You kind of have this like approach of, the wide net of organic and paid distribution that's like pushy. But then while people are usually like attribution in, you're kind of like demo out, right? Like you look for historical data of how many demos did we get from the website, and then reverse engineer, what all that means as far as like sales velocity and conversion rate, right? If I'm understanding it.
I've been in more than 50 Salesforce instances in the past 24 months. I look at where all of the revenue came from that was sourced by marketing. I work backwards to the path of conversion that started the opportunity. The path of conversion that starts the opportunity is organic or direct traffic that funnels onto the website, not a long tail SEO blog. And then they click a demo page, they view the page, and they convert. That's the path that generates 60 to 80% of revenue for most companies from marketing sourced. And so that's the path. Now, what can we do in other channels without direct attribution between the things to have more people go through that flow? And the way that you do that is by educating people in places where they are, so that they go and make that search, or they type in your website onto their browser and they come through and do that. And so that's the framework. A lot of people can't do it because they don't have that connection, and they're either executives don't believe in it, or they don't know how to put those pieces together. I get it. Like, I've been a marketer before and been able to put those pieces together. I've been looking at this stuff intently for a very long time. So for whatever reason, they don't see the connection, but that's the connection. And so it's marketing to either through content or to drive word of mouth that moves people through that conversion path.
So do you never create content that is about your services, or you do sometimes decide bring an actual customer, interview them about how they interact with your services and stuff that is a little bit more salesy than just general content? Yeah,
we typically don't do that, right? Like, I have data on a spreadsheet right here that shows that our average customer sees qualified pipeline increase by 56% on average over the first 6 months of working with us. And the highest one was 900% with a pretty decent baseline. And so I don't run a lot of the like promotional type stuff. It's purely on like, does it intersect with the things that our company does? For sure. Like, we go in and clean up all the messes that other companies create on paid to drive the wrong metrics. And I just see all the data, and then I can easily communicate the symptoms and the signs and the reasons why it happens. And so once people see that, they go back into their data and they look at it, like, he was right. Our like content syndication leads do close at 0.1%. This is where people are falling off. This is how much our CAC is. Like, what he said was right. And I'm like, I know, because I've looked at 50 companies that are all doing this stuff. When the data is consistent, the data is consistent. And so I think it's more about weaving it in a way that helps illuminate problems that people didn't know that they had, and being able to articulate the reason why that problem is happening.
Hey, Chris, given that they're a pretty nascent company without a ton of data coming in, and to set up the infrastructure, right, to set up their sales force, is there like, is your magic, and like, I know you're an engineer and you're like a mad scientist, right? Is your magic enabled to like reverse engineering this stuff, or is there something that we can do on the front end to set up their MarTech stack in order to, from the beginning, start tracking this stuff cleanly?
Yeah, so my post on LinkedIn today would probably be a good place to reference. I listed out 4 different ways to measure this. If you have Salesforce, you should probably get HubSpot or Marketo. I'd recommend HubSpot. It's just easier to set up for your stage. That's going to give you first touch attribution across, and then the conversion point for where they converted. So you're going to have most likely the captured demand attribution, which is most likely going to show up in organic search, direct traffic, or if you're running paid search. Those are the 3 majors, or occasionally you'll get some referral as well, potentially, depending on where you are. And then what I'm recommending, what we have on our website is we have a how did you hear about us on the forum. The how did you hear about us on the forum gives us way different data than what HubSpot reports or what multi-touch attribution software reports. It's really valuable for us. It just basically proves that the way that these tools are measuring things are not capturing the impactful touch points that are driving people to buy stuff. So there's that one. There's win analysis. So when you win customers, calling the person that was the primary decider and talking to them about how they discovered you, what things they were doing, what other tools they evaluated, why did they choose you, just a comprehensive win analysis. And then the last one, you might be too early for this one, but starting to get to a place where you're doing some form of large scale market research every 3 to 6 months. And so that would be surveying your customers, aided and unaided recall, aided and unaided understanding of products or concepts, comparison against competitors. What is their preferred brand? What brand do they currently use? Demographics of the people that are responding that are important to you to segment out. Like doing some form of that and tracking it over time is really important. One of the questions that we've used on that for a long time is where did you hear about this brand or things like that? And that data is really interesting when you go back and show it to executives, because what people are telling you about where they heard about the brand versus what you're seeing in attribution on conversions is completely different. So those are 4 ways to measure. You probably, for the beginning, you probably only need the first 2. All righty. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we definitely got through that. That was cool. I'm going to need to jump on a call. We got a couple new employees starting, so I'm going to welcome them to the team. But it was awesome catching up with you. I hope it was helpful. We'll be putting this out on the podcast probably relatively shortly. So if you want to really listen, you can grab it there, or if you want a recording, I can get that over to you as well.
I'll hit you up for a recording, man. This was phenomenal. Thank you. This is really
awesome. Super happy to help.
Thanks, Chris.
Good to meet you all. Talk to you later.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out this episode of the State of Demand Gen podcast. You know, it's crazy to think that now more than 15,000 demand marketers, sales reps, product marketers, field marketers, CMOs, and everything in between are listening to this podcast and getting a ton of value out of it. And so if you've been listening to the podcast and you've been getting value out of it, I would really, really, really appreciate if you could leave a rating in the podcast section. It would mean a lot to me. Thank you, and see you for the next episode.